Better servers of Reddit, what is the best clapback you've delivered to a rude customer? Story one: way back in the day when I worked in food service, we had a customer who got a salad, and when she was finished placed one of her hairs in the bowl in order to get it refunded, and got the complimentary "I'm sorry" free bakery item. She did this every day. Finally, the DM sat down at her table and told her this was her last day eating in the cafe. They would refuse her refund today and refuse her service in the future. She started to say something about the customer always being right, and he just put up a hand to cut her off and said, "You cause us to lose money every day. You're absolutely not our customer. You are a liability, and you're no longer welcome here." Edit: because many people have asked, it took embarrassingly long to get there. I worked in training support, and the issue came to light during an associate-level customer service class. They had been going with it for at least a few weeks. I'm not sure if the managers all knew what was going on, but I called their GM and DM after class, and it was taken care of between the two of them by the end of that week. Story 2: live in a small town. Worked in a fish and chip shop, one of two in the town. We were a tourism town, and one of the main attractions was the award-winning fish and chips top 5 in the county. While I was there, people in the town believed we were in massive competition with the other shop. We weren't. We had 25 staff, they had around 7 to 8, and we were serving thousands more customers than them per week, or even per day in summer. So, on the rare occasion, whenever a customer got angry, they would simply exclaim, "Well, I am going to insert suppose competitor's name here instead, and I won't be back." Like it was a big deal and would really hurt our feelings business. We would simply tell them that we don't want them back, and they should enjoy the food from the other shop. We owned both shops. Story 3: not me, but my manager, woman, comes in every Sunday and complains every Sunday. This past time she said, "I won't be coming back." And he goes, "All right, I'll see you next week." Story 4: I was a witness to a silent owning that I get giddy thinking of buddy of mine serving a table, and the kid is around 8 to 10. Gives her an adult glass for her apple juice. Dad pipes up and says he doesn't want her having all that sugar, so he needed to take it away and come back with a kid-sized one. My friend replied that the glasses are the same size. The adult size just looks bigger because they have thick bottoms. The dad responds that the adult glass is clearly bigger, and like I said, I don't want her to have all that sugar. My buddy is in. He gives a super deliberate, exaggerated nod, says nothing, and marches to our little service alley behind the bar and reemerges with a kid's cup, sets it down beside the glass, picks up the glass, and pours the adult glass, lifting it progressively higher until the last drops. He drops from like a foot over the glass and darts off to the kitchen without even looking at the guy, like didn't even exist. I died. Edit: now that I think about it. He's a Redditor. He blew up maybe 7 to 10 years ago for giving his dog with terminal cancer a bacon wrap last meal. Don't know as you to give him proper cred. Story 5: not at a restaurant, but at BYU. They're having education week. Lady snapping fingers to student employee. Tell me where the Marriott Center is a student employee snapping back. Try again. Story 6: bunch of drunks making a mess, wasting our time and harassing other tables. Me, the manager, has decided all off, you need to leave. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, and your behavior warrants it. Loudest drunk it. We're never going to come back to this hole. Me, that's exactly the point. Please leave. Serve in Muskoka, Ontario years ago. Lots of celebrities in the area for the summer. Serve Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn burgers. Martin Short, Dan Aykroyd, etc. Had a local nobody who thought he was a big celebrity. Would never tip, and would always crumple up both copies of the Visa bill into a tiny little ball. Even chew on it till it was the size of a spitball. So this hat comes in with a bunch of friends and treats them all to supper. 600 bill, crumples up the Visa bills again into the tiny little ball and flicks it at me with a grin on his face. I swiftly kick it off the patio and into the lake our patio is on. He sees this and says in front of the table, "Guess you want to know what your tip is now." I tell the table flat out he never tips anyways, so no loss, and walk away. They leave. I call the police on a dine and dash because there is no evidence this guy paid. It's in the lake now, and I deleted the pre-off from the debit machine. Cops go to this guy's house and make him return to the restaurant to pay. He wasn't in ever again. Story 7: rude customer. I don't like insert literally anything here. Is owner in? I know him. Me overly excited. OMG, same, I know him too. He's not here, but I'm the manager on today, so he'll help you out. Story 8: woman complained about her cocktail, saying she couldn't taste the alcohol. Could we make it stronger? It was already a double, but we added a splash. She still couldn't taste it. Could we add more? She was obviously drunk when she arrived and angling to get more drunk as cheap as possible. Which is why I took her cocktail, apologized that it wasn't to her liking, and said I'd take it off her bill, effectively cutting her off for the night. Story 9: work for a moving company. Customers always get mad when we don't have the equipment available for them when they show up last minute with no reservation. We'll just go to competitor's name. would always reply with exact directions. Great, they are block north on the right side. You can't miss him. Never failed to get a disgusted scoff, but we would always see them again in an hour or so to set up a reservation when competitors didn't have any equipment either. Story 10. My brother was a waiter and was working with a really difficult woman. She ordered the salmon and asked when it got to her table if it was farm-raised. She got mad at him because he didn't mention that the salmon was farm-raised when she was ordering, even though it clearly states that it is farm-raised on the menu. She ordered the chicken to replace the salmon, and my brother said, I have to warn you, it's farm-raised. Story 11. We have sweet biscuits with icing on top. Every weekend this lady comes in, wants them fresh with extra icing, but every time something is wrong, the main complaint being it's too cold, probably due to the extra icing being on top of it, which we have told her repeatedly. Well, this last time she came in, we give her the biscuit fresh out the oven, loaded down with icing, and she still says it's cold. The manager tells her the only way to get it any hotter would be to melt the icing in the microwave, which we refuse to do. The lady has a conniption, demanding to know why. My manager, God love her, says because sugar is hotter than the 7 suns of when it's heated up like that, and no matter how much you deserved it, I'd be damned if I give you an excuse to have a lawsuit against us. Edit, it's Hardee's, y'all, cinnamon raisin biscuits. Story 12. Table of 10, Sunday brunch. Fancy restaurant, am hungover, a crowd swarms in an opening, and my whole section is sat at once. Am efficient and cool. I'm used to this. I get to the big table and preface that water is being brought as we speak, then begin taking everyone's drink order. As I'm taking orders around the table, one woman blurts out that she wants water, and not to forget the water, interrupting her friends and family as they make their requests. I acknowledge her each time until after the 4th time, saying, if you ask for water again, they'll make sure everyone here gets water, but you. She sinks back in her chair looking dumbfounded, and I go put in the order, then head to the bar. Story 13. I slipped a napkin with a lipstick kiss, and the text, it was great, you were great. Let's do it again, in the pocket of a man's jacket. The same man who openly mocked my colleague. She has Down syndrome in front of his whole Christian family. Story 14. Am quite feminine for a guy. I don't mind what people say or think about me, so I get confused for gays sometimes, that it's important for later. As I was working as cashier, a guy just went to me and started to say, and am quoting him, I don't understand how many gay people works in this restaurant. I don't even know if I want to eat here anymore. Lots of my coworkers are gay. And the way he said was not exactly kindly. So when his meal was ready, nobody wanted to give it to him. So I just did what any sane person would do in my position. I took his meal, and you bet I became a Disney princess for like 5 minutes straight. Walking like a model, calling him sweet names, being extremely touching, and giving him the best attention I could. It was so fun. Story 15. Italian customer at a steakhouse in the U.S. My pasta wasn't quite al dente. Me just got off a plane from Italy, ordered pasta at a steakhouse in the U.S., and you're surprised it was less perfect that you're accustomed to. Story 16. Had a girl ordering a pina colada and then complaining about the coconut. She didn't like coconut, so I got her another drink, and she goes, what are you going to do with that one? Will you throw it away? I just looked at her, told her that I do like coconut, and took a sip. Story 17. I had more than one of these encounters since I worked as a waiter for quite a while. I remember a Karen wanting a sincere apology after insulting and berating one of my best friends there, and since I was the one in charge, I had to do it. So, with the biggest smile I could put on, I went to her and said, I'm so sorry for the things my coworker did to you. We all here know a lady like you deserves different, so let me help you. She was smiling like the crazy she was thinking she won. But then I added, let me go with you to the door so you could find a restaurant that served your kind. Since you are not welcome here anymore, she was fumming. I still remember his face, lol. Then as she was leaving, I said something like, I hope you have a day as wonderful as you deserve. She complained to management. But since I was always the good guy at work and my coworkers didn't say a thing, they let it pass. Story 18. I worked at a restaurant in my hometown for years, and the most common rude thing customers would pull was lifting their empty cup with ice in it and shaking it at me, implying they needed a refill. My response was always the same. Are you making music, or did you need something? Use your words. Asshats, am not your dog. Story 19. Not at a restaurant, but as a parking attendant at a ski resort, I was allowed to clap back. The best one went like this. Guy, why can't I just park there? Me, because we have a bunch of school buses full of kids coming later, and we need to reserve this space for them. Guy, but am a good driver, come on. There's no parking anywhere else. Me, yes. You'll just have to walk a little bit further from your car to the lift. Guy, but I don't want me too bad, leave for the bathroom, and comes back finding Guy and family getting ready, where I told him not to park. Guy smirks at me, fills out a parking ticket, and places it on his windshield in front of him. Guy, hey, what the man? Me, move your car now, or I'll tow it too. Story 20. On my last night as a delivery driver, I was told to keep the change on 12.98 as my tip. I responded by rummaging through my change pouch, took out 2 pennies, and tossed them back, saying if I wanted your 2 cents, I would have asked you a question, and walked away. Was my final delivery ever, and well worth it. Edit, I was working for a wing place in the US, and he ordered the wing basket to be paid cash upon delivery. On another note, this location was notorious for never tipping, and the owner, to make up for it, charged an extra quarter for delivery. So instead of when it cost $1.25, this was revenge for all the times us drivers went there in the past, and for those who continue to do so. For the Brits, here it is customary to tip food delivery drivers 2 to 3 for a basic meal, or more, depending on how much food you ordered. Story 21, not a server, but I had a few when I worked out at the Comcast retail center. One guy in particular came in hot and was adamant that we doubled his bill. I look into his billing history, and lo and behold, he hasn't paid in 2 months. I point this out to him and say, let's be real, you haven't paid in 2 months, we're both white. And I guess my use of the phrase be real triggered something in him, because now he's complaining that I have shitty customer service and I should go work for McDonald's instead. I immediately respond, but then where would you work? I know Comcast is evil and all, but taking money from that made my entire week. Edit, to people asking me why I brought up race. It's because I was the only white person working that day in an urban location. And maybe I'm reaching, but that job was the only time in my life where other white people felt the need to correct my speech. He wasn't the first or the last to do this. Story 22, I once saw an extremely rude guy picking on waitresses and just being a total. There was, however, one male waiter, whom he promptly summoned. Guy, another beer. Waiter, sorry. No more left. Guy, horseshit. Bring me the beer. Waiter, no more left for you. He then walked off, leaving the guy to himself. The rude dude then left the place, quietly to my great surprise. Maybe not the most powerful comeback, but it was amusing to watch. Story 23, work part-time at a thrift store. Got cursed out by a customer yelling, why don't you get a real job? Replied with, why don't you go yell a real store? In the most tired, deadpan voice. This happened a few times. Story 24, host sat me at a table with a couple and their toddler. The two sat on the same side of the booth, kissed, etc. So I knew they were a couple, but the woman looked much older, like she looked terrible. I'm sure it was drug abuse of some kind, but it was noticeable, so she's super rude to me the entire time. She asked for her eggs over easy hard. Our conversation went like this, me ma'am. Your eggs can be over easy, which is kind of runny, or over hard where they're fully cooked. Her, oh, bless your heart. You have no idea, do you, me ma'am? Or why don't you get me a real server? And he can make my eggs the way I like them. Ma'am, I know how eggs are cooked. Over easy hard doesn't tell me anything. Do you want them over medium? Or how hard is your job? Honestly, how hard is it to just serve people eggs? ID had it. I gave her order to the cook, and of course he asked me what she meant. I told him to just make them over medium, as I felt like that was what she meant. I gave her the eggs, and she sighed real heavy. Her, I'm sorry, was my order too hard? Did you not understand me? What the kind of place is this that nobody can make me eggs? I took a deep breath and said this, ma'am. I apologize to you, your son, and your grandson. Let me go ahead and comp your meal. Her face twisted up and got so red, I thought it was going to pop off of her face. This is my husband, and that's my son. Oh boy, it was so worth it. Where's your manager? I need your manager right now. I got my manager. He yelled at me in the office, but couldn't prove that I was purposefully disingenuous, so I didn't even get written up. It was awesome. Story 25, for context, I'm a female in my 20s working at a fine dining restaurant. This older guy kept giving me all night, doing stuff like ordering credits and then calling it rabbit food and sending it back. At the end of the meal, he says, where do I put this comment card? Me, see that black box over there. Right in there. Guy, did you just ask me to stuff your box? Me, mine isn't black, sir. I need to actually help people now. His friend started cracking up and his face turned bright red. I don't understand people who make inappropriate comments like that in public. It made the entire meal uncomfortable, and his friends were clearly not impressed by the way he was treating me. Story 26, kind of long one. Working in a resort. Guest is a type A that thinks he's fartless. You know the type? Obviously has to be the group leader of a table full of 4 to 5 other dudes. During my spiel, I tell the table we are out of a certain thing. I don't remember what or why. I start taking the table's order and get to him. T.S. He'll have the thing. Me, as I said, sir, we're out of thing. T.S. Maybe you'll just call my good friend general manager, and they'll find some for me. Me, you're more than welcome to do. So, but the number on the business card you picked up at the front is an office number, not their personal phone. Also, they're the one that just told me we're out of thing. Maybe if you called general manager in advance to let your good friend know you were coming, we could have held some back specially for you. Now, this may not seem all that destructive, but to this guy, at this table full of his colleagues, it was brutal. He tried to save face, but it failed so hard. TAS, well, if you can't keep your food in stock, then we probably should have gone somewhere else to eat. The gauntlet has been thrown down. Me, that's an excellent idea, sir. Would you like me to check if there is a table free at our steakhouse? TAS, yes, maybe then I can get some food. He starts talking to the other guys in the group like somehow we're in the wrong here. They're all just looking at him like he's a total because he is. I go to the phone, call the steakhouse, and ask if they have space for one. They do. Good. Back to the table. Me, you'll be happy to know, sir, that our steakhouse is able to accommodate you and will have a table waiting when you arrive. TAS in the cuntiest voice he can muster, which is nowhere near, as I could be thank you for some kind of service. He turns to the rest of the table. Let's go, guys. Me, I'm sorry, sir. I was under the impression you would be dining alone and didn't ask if they could take a party this size. I assumed they'd be dining with us, seeing as they all ordered items we have available. The guy just looks dumbfounded, and while he's standing there trying to process this, one of the dudes at the table chimes in. DT, don't worry about it. TS, head on down there. We'll meet up at Resort Bar for drinks later. TS grabs his drink, says nothing, and walks out. He hits the door, and the rest of the table goes into that quiet, what a laugh that only men of a certain age and income bracket are able to do properly. The kind that lets you know this is funny now, but come Monday, that S-world is going to be slightly different in many, many small ways. The evening continues. Yes, this happened. Yes, I have more stories. Yes, I really missed that job. Anyway, the evening continues, and sometime after I take that table to dessert, my general manager pulls me aside. GM, what happened? I spent the last half hour getting yelled at by some guy that says you were super rude to him. I give GM a quick rundown. We did not have what the gentleman wanted, so I made him a reservation at the steakhouse. In a story, I have no idea why he would possibly be upset. His coworkers over at table number are having a great time. GM goes over to their table and starts talking to them, presumably starting with how their meal was and ending with what happened with the other guy that I saw with you. It was beautiful. They had my back the whole way. They threw him so far under the bus for acting like he rolled out the other side and got hit by a semi in the next lane over. They were nothing but complimentary to me, which was a nice bonus. GM came back over and told me everything seemed fine with them, shrugged it off, and went back to doing whatever GMs do. For anyone that actually read this far, just take this bit of information and carry it with you always. Nothing infuriates shitty humans more than someone doing exactly what they want done. Monkey paw style, I was working the counter at Ski Resorts Cafe. This teenage came up with French fries and said that he didn't bring any money. So, could he just have them for free? I said, nope, he said, but I'm a good customer. And I said, okay, but fries are for paying customers. And proceeded to take them away from him and pop one in my mouth right in front of him. He had nothing to say to that, but his friend cracked up and apologized for him. When I turned around, all of my coworkers were in awe of how perfect the moment was. Story 27, my elderly neighbor has connections at Boston Pizza and always gets free gravy with her fries. When she went to Humpty's, she asked for gravy. When she was told she would be charged for it, she said, I get it free at Boston Pizza. The server told her that she could go back to Boston Pizza then. Story 28, am not a server, but I thought you folks might like this one anyways. I worked at Target a few years ago. When it's time to close, a speaker warns you 15 or so minutes early and asks you to wrap things up. This lady is going through cloths at the speed of snail, taking her sweet time. Recording plays again. We're closing ECT. I walk up to her and pretend I know sign language and start fake signing. She asked, what are you doing? I replied, I'm sorry, I thought you were deaf. Story 29, I had one of those women that complain about their food, hoping to get it comped, which she did. But then she asked for a Togo box. I said, I thought you didn't like your meal. Are you sure you want to take it home? She got pissed. I should have refused to give her the box, but I was new, so I boxed it for her. No tip, of course. Story 30, I work at a New York-style pizza place, but it's in North Carolina. A customer came in and ordered a slice of pizza. This is how the conversation went. Customer, is this really a New York slice? My manager, how about you get the out of here? Is that New York enough for you? The guy laughed. It was pretty awesome. Story 31, this'll probably get buried. But I enjoy the story. I work in retail, big box home improvement store that deals with a lot of contractors, but I got promoted to an HR position, so I don't work with customers that often anymore, but I like to work the floor still just to help out. One small-time contractor was trying to return 3 large flat carts full of merchandise from her last job, and she wanted it back in cash with no receipt. We offered to look through all of her orders in the system to find the receipts, but she didn't want to wait for that. She just wanted the cash. So I start ringing up the merchandise, knowing the system won't let me return it with no cash. But I just wanted to show her that store credit was the only option. The merchandise ends up totally around $3,000. And I show her the register says store credit only. She gets irate and demands to speak to the store manager, SM. I tell her that he's not available. And even he couldn't override the system. She says something along the lines of, I don't know what magic wand he used to make it happen, but he helped me do this before, and I want him to do it again. He knows me. And if you tell him who I am, then hell help. So I whip out my cell phone and call his personal phone. Hey, SM, I'm really sorry to bother you on your vacation, but I have a customer here who has a problem that she says only you can fix. Do you remember contractor's name? Oh, well, you don't. Well, she says you helped her return merchandise without a receipt for cash. You don't remember that, okay? Yeah, it'll have one of the assistant managers take care of it. She was pissed, and I told her the only way we could do it is by having one of the assistant managers calling our regional asset protection manager, who would have to approve it. She ended up taking the store credit. Story 32. When I was a server, I hope you have a day as lovely as you are. Front desk in a pediatrics office when a parent complained about the paperwork required to obtain medical history before an initial appointment. You're right. It's a lot of paperwork. Hey, race a survey for you to fill out so you can give our office manager your feedback. Story 33. I remember my personal favorite, older couple around 70-ish, would always come in this chain restaurant to eat every Sunday after church. While the wife was extremely polite, the guy was an absolute bag of dicks. He often yelled and berated her along with the server. On one fateful day, I was graced with their presence once again. He was being his normal self toward me, and even worse to his wife on this particular occasion. Finally, I had had enough of his toward his wife and said, "No matter what you say and what you do, you'll have at least 2 minutes alone with your food. It will be right out." The wife absolutely lost it laughing. He shot her a mean glare, and after hesitating a split second, she continued with even louder laughing. I never touched his food, and neither did he. They never came back. Story 34. Former waiter turned flight attendant. I fly on a regional plane in which there's a rear jump seat at the back, surrounded by 2 passengers on the left and 2 on the right. I'm squished right in the middle. Some guy was busting my about being in the back, and he was talking smack. My response: if the plane goes down, I will be surrounded by 4 squishy bodies and probably walk away. That's why I am here in the back, in the middle, in this tiny seat. Bodies make great padding. The look of silence on his face was priceless. Story 35. I waited on a dude and a group of his friends, and he was just generally being a douchebag, condescending, snapping his fingers to get my attention, calling me sweetie, the whole 9 yards. He also kept claiming that he was a friend of the owner and that he should be able to order from the breakfast menu. Because of this, even though I said no, all of our breakfast stuff is put away. This is dinner only. Well, ID had about enough when he got the bill, and because there was so many in his party, I was able to autograph it, automatic 20 tip on the check. I brought him his bill and explained the autograph. And he looked at me and said, "Wow, are you okay with only getting this amount? I could have left you more, you know?" And I immediately replied, "Oh, don't worry. There's a line below the autograph where you can add more of a tip," and walked away. He did end up leaving me more. Story 36. Not me personally, but my manager in a luxury boutique hotel. The building dates from the 16th century in a town with cobbled streets and antique shops. People come for the charm of the good old days. Had a customer leave a TripAdvisor review, complaining that the floorboards in the hotel freaked. My manager responded by pointing out the age of the building and told the customer that next time they would probably be more comfortable staying at a Travelodge budget hotel chain in England. Even had a guest check in a few weeks later and told me that had seen the manager's response and that had convinced him to come and stay at the hotel. Story 37. I had a coworker get a 3-day suspension for chasing a customer down and handing back the dollar tip and saying, "You obviously need this more than I do." The check was for 80, and she was a consistently good server. She had enough BS that day. Story 38. Not a restaurant, retail, and has to do with food. 24-hour, always open. Customer comes in around midnight looking for a specific product. She's like 65 and super grouchy, yelling, irrational, wants this certain thing to cook a dish. We didn't have it. No one did. It didn't even exist locally. Some super specific foreign spice thing. I don't remember anymore. It was well over a decade ago. ASM comes up, smiles. We hadn't even called for him. He just heard her all the way in the back of the store. He asks what she wants and politely apologizes and tells her no. Unfortunately, that's a product we don't carry, but alt local grocer that's also open 247 does. It's just up the street a mile. She thanks him and leaves. I ask him about it, knowing that it was a lie. And he says, no, of course not. She's batshit crazy, but now it's their problem and not mine. Story 39. Had a customer harassing me over a product he bought and wanted a return, no receipt, over the return date, claimed he paid for it in cash. I told him that the return policy was within 30 days, and he had to have a receipt. Him, you're just paid to say that. Me, as a matter of fact, I am paid to say that. That's how jobs work. Never saw his scamming again. Story 40. As the owner, I love this story. I used to own a concession business, selling various novelty food items like kettle corn, shaved ice, etc. One of our weekly shows was busy AF, so busy occasionally, would have 50 in line. Admittedly, the wait took a bit. However, my staff and I busted like there was an electric cord shoved up our rears to service people as quickly as possible. This one guy is nonstop bitching. I hear him from 20 people away. So I wait. Once he's a few people from the front, I turn to my staff and say, shut off the equipment. The equipment was loud, so turning it off created an odd silence. With there still 50 people in line, I turn to the guy and say loud enough for everyone in line to hear, Sir, I'm not sure if you noticed how hard my staff is working to get you your kettle corn as quickly as possible. Perhaps you have some suggestions for us to make it go faster for you. I can't remember if he stayed, but everyone else in line clapped on behalf of my staff. The customer is not always right. Story 41, an older woman at my table asked me what my mother must think about my tattoos, and I said, well, my father doesn't mind. She didn't take the hint. I guess it wasn't a very good hint, and asked, well, what about your mother? To which I replied, she's dead. She doesn't do a lot of thinking. Did she stop there? No. She said, did she die of shame? I just said no, breast cancer, and dropped the check. They weren't done eating, but her guests looked like they wanted to leave. Story 42, when I was 16 and waitressing, a woman kept criticizing the food during a busy night, demanding free meals. Eventually, she started making personal remarks, and I replied with the most savage burn I could think up at the time. I know you are, but what am I? She went up to start complaining to the manager, who didn't care and walked off mid-sentence. Story 43, we don't use trays at the restaurant I work at. You just take what you can carry and go back for the rest, or have someone follow you. I usually just carry one item in each hand, so I don't risk dropping things. Pretty often you'll hear we're missing item in a condescending or rude way. 99 of the time from older people, I just say, Mom, sir. I only have two hands, not especially creative or a clapback, but always gives me a nice sense of satisfaction. Story 44, not me, but a friend. He was bartending and got into a tiff with a customer, and the customer said he would never be returning. About a year later, that customer walked in and said, I can't believe you're still here. And John responded, I can't believe you came back. Story 45, not a waiter server. But when I was an Army MP in Germany, I had a guy say in front of a crowd of people, look, it's the MPS, just like condoms that protect and serve. He thought he had me until I said, yep, and that makes you the M protecting. And then everyone clapped. Story 46, I'm a secret shopper. So I would want, guess the secret out, I know full well actual secret shoppers don't tell people that they really are secret shoppers. Story 47, I was serving a group of 40 people with one other server. As we're bringing plates out, she asked me for a side of ranch. As I'm bringing second set of plates out, took me like 4 to 5 trips, she asks again. Then again, obviously I'm going to bring people's hot food out before you are ranch lady. Basically, I ended up forgetting about her ranch, cause she wouldn't stop asking when I clearly couldn't. She waits around after everyone leaves BTW. This was a free meal being paid for by people hosting these people, so they could tell them about some business opportunity. Basically, it was a free meal for her, and asked me if I was ever going to get her ranch in a snobby tone. And without thinking, I just said no. Lady loses it and literally starts yelling at me. And in my calmest voice, people don't like you being calm. When they're raging, it makes them angrier. I said, haha, okay, maybe don't yell at me. To which she kept yelling, and I went, okay, haha, but maybe don't yell at me. And after the second one, I could actually see the clarity. Like she developed self-awareness for a second. Clapback wasn't witty, but she realized she was flying off the handle. Was great. Story 48, I am not either. But I was in a restaurant once, and this woman comes up to the waiter and goes, excuse me, but I've been waiting for my food for nearly 5 minutes now. She had a party table, and a table of 8. The waiter then, calmly, goes to her, ma'am, you realize the restaurant is extremely busy. You have a table of 8, and we have minimum staff. It's going to take a whole lot longer than 5 minutes to cook your food, bearing in mind, this was a week before Christmas, so everyone was having really Christmas dinners. She then huffs and goes to sit down. 5 minutes later, goes back again. Woman, sir, we have been waiting 10 minutes. Where is our food? Waiter getting slightly annoyed, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to sit down and wait patiently or leave. Woman, I want to talk to the manager. Waiter, ma'am, the manager is on maternity leave and the assistant manager, and I'm asking you to sit down or leave. Woman goes to sit down. By this point, nearly the entire restaurant was trying to not laugh. The waiter talks to the cook to get the woman's food out first. 2 minutes later, he does so. They eat, leave money for the bill, and then get ready to leave. Waiter comes over. Waiter, did you enjoy your food? Woman, yes, not thanks to you, though. Waiter, literally almost at the end of his tether, ma'am. If not for me, you would still be waiting. Woman, going to leave a bad review on this restaurant and get you sacked from your job. Waiter, I won't get sacked thanks to a like you who thinks everyone has all the time in the world to cater for you. The woman and her party left after that. I never did find out what happened, but I applaud that waiter for acting so calm.